I'm Quinn Wisson from Vertical Measures, and it also might be your afternoon, so good afternoon. I'm here hosting Vertical Measures' monthly webinar series, and today's webinar is titled The 5 Most Important Subjects of Any Content Marketing Campaign to Explode Traffic, Trust, Leads, and Sales, and will be presented by our very special guest, Marcus Sheridan. You may know Marcus by his other persona, the Sales Lion, where he consults with businesses and brands around the globe. In 2010, Marcus transformed his company River Pools and Spas through inbound and content marketing principles and has become an expert on it since. And if you've ever seen a presentation or taken a workshop with Marcus, you can totally see his passion shine through. We're super excited to have him here today, and I don't know if he wants me to say this, but this is the first webinar ever done in a car. So we're becoming so mobile, we're even doing a webinar in a car. Not me, but Marcus. So he's traveling and doing lots of workshops and being a super trooper. So before we get started and I hand over the presentation, I have a few housekeeping items to note. Today's webinar will be available for viewing by tomorrow, and I will go ahead and send you an email with a link so you can both watch the video and review the slides. We'll also be happy to answer any of your questions. So if you take a peek at your webinar interface, you'll see a little question applet where you can send anything you'd like me to ask Marcus at the end of his presentation. Also, you can tweet us with the hashtag VMWebinar, and we'll get them that way too. Also, if you have any technical problems, just try to disconnect and reconnect, and usually that fixes the issue. So I think that's all the notes I have, so I'm going to hand it off to our presenter, Marcus Sheridan.
Quinn, thank you so much. And it's true, ladies and gents, I am in a vehicle, and this is the best place to give a webinar, but I'm not driving, so you don't have to worry about that. And anybody that needs to or is using the Twitters as we're having this conversation today, I am at the Sales Line. And Quinn, did you say the hashtag for everybody that needs to know? I think you said it was
VMWebinar.
Say it one more. Yes. Okay. There you go.
Yep.
V as in Vertical Measures webinar. All right. So what do you say we just jump in and we have a good fast and furious time here? So one of the favorite phrases or questions that I like to ask people as I travel all over the world is, how would you define great website? You know, and the phrases are many. People say, oh, well, it's easy to navigate, or it's not cluttered, or it's intuitive. But if you look at everything that everyone is saying, they're essentially saying the exact same thing. There is one core to what defines a great website and a great web experience today. And that is essentially, I want to find what I'm looking for. And I want to find it quickly. Because every single one of us, we're growing dramatically more impatient every single day as we search for things online. And the best companies, from a digital perspective, they're the ones that understand this principle and this philosophy of let's give them what they want and let's give it to them quickly. And to me, this really is the essence of great content marketing. You know, you hear different definitions of content marketing out there. I don't think there's anything wrong with any one definition per se, but one thing I know, no CEO has ever woke up and said, I want to be a great content marketer. And we have to be careful about how we define and how we explain this phrase, especially to those in our organization, especially to those on the sales team, especially to others. How I define content marketing, and this is just my way, but I believe content marketing is your company's ability to be the best and most helpful teacher in the world. Now what you do, and in this case, it's digitally speaking, of course, so your company's ability to be the best and most helpful teacher in the world. And if you're going to be great, at this, we're going to talk today about the subjects that move the needle in every single industry. But in order to paint the picture, I want to give you a quick background on me. If you haven't heard my story before, I used to be a pool guy. In fact, I still own a swimming pool company. I'm just a silent partner. It's called River Pools and Spas. We started it in 2001, and things were going okay, and we were growing the business up until this particular date and number. And if you had a business then, you certainly know what these numbers represent. That represents the day of the crash and where the Dow went. And after that day, our company was in big trouble. In fact, we lost 5 deposits that day. In other words, people that had put down a deposit that were going to get a swimming pool, they withdrew it and they said, we just can't do it. We don't have confidence in the economy. And so then all of a sudden, we were in huge trouble. And over the coming months, things started to get worse and worse and worse up until January of 2009. This is where we were as a company. I literally went through a period, 3 straight weeks, where we were overdrawn in our bank account. My 16 employees were sitting at home, and every single consultant that I talked to said, Marcus, you should file bankruptcy. You should just call it a day. But the problem was, if I filed bankruptcy, I was going to lose my home. My 2 business partners were going to lose their home. Of course, our business. Of course, our employees were going to lose their jobs. And so that's when we started really to study about this thing we call the internet and content and inbound. You know, thinking a lot more about Google and the way Google really works. And, you know, if we had to define Google in its most simplistic terms without using any fancy phrases, how would you define it? And I imagine if you're like me, you would say something like a place where I go to get answers. But I want you to think for a second about what Google has done over the past few years. Google has one obsession and one great fear. Their biggest fear is that you won't get the answer you're looking for. And if you don't get the answer you're looking for when you search, you use somebody else. That's their greatest fear. And so every single update and adjustment that they have made has been based on this one premise of, I want to give them the best, most specific, and most relevant answer to their specific question. Because each and every one of us, as we search for things online, we have grown not just more impatient, but also more specific in the way that we search over these last few years. But Google wants to give people great answers. Unfortunately, they can't always give people great answers in their search results. And the reason is, now you say, well, Marcus, they show me all the answers. But just because they show you 10 results on a page doesn't mean that you as the consumer feel great about those 10. In fact, in every single industry in the world, I have found that most businesses suffer from what is ostrich marketing. Now, what is ostrich marketing? Ostrich marketing is essentially an ostrich, when it has a problem, what does it do? Well, it buries its head in the sand. And why does it bury its head in the sand? It does it because it thinks the problem will go away. So how does that relate to us that are listening to this webinar? Well, have you ever been asked a question from your prospects or your customers where you said, you know what, we really can't address that on our website? Well, most people have experienced this, and I'm here to tell you that this strategy, ostrich marketing, especially when it comes to content, it doesn't work. In fact, you've got to be the opposite. You've got to embrace what I believe is a philosophy of, 4 simple words, they ask, you answer. And this is what we embraced with River Pools, a philosophy of, if anyone has ever asked us a question, we're going to be willing to address it on our website. We're not going to hide from it. We're going to embrace the thing. And if there's one thing that you get from this webinar, I hope that you remember those 4 words. Specifically, when it comes to the questions that you get as a business and the things that people are searching, there's 5 subjects that we have found move the needle in every single industry. It doesn't matter what it is. And what I'm getting ready to show you is as every bit business to business, B2B, as it is B2C. This even drips into B2G, which here in Virginia is business to government. So as you're hearing these things that I explain, be assured, like for us, 70% of our clients at the sales line in vertical measures, it's probably the same, are B2B companies. They're probably somewhere in that arena. And so the point is, as you hear this, I can assure you that what you're about to see applies to you. So what are these 5 subjects that move the needle? Well, here's the 5 subjects that move the needle in every single industry. When somebody or a company or something is getting ready to buy something else, spend money on something else, more than anything, they talk about 5 subjects. They are cost and price-based questions, problems/issues-based questions, versus/comparison-based questions or searches. When I say questions, I'm really just talking about any type of search that they do online. Review-based questions and best of questions. These are the big 5. And here's what's fascinating about the phenomena of the Big Five. You as a consumer, you search for these phrases when you are getting ready to buy something all the time. But businesses, they don't like to talk about them. And that is where the ostrich comes into play. So I want to break each one of these Big Five down for you. I'm going to show how this worked for river pools, and then I'm going to show examples of other companies. Again, please note that this isn't about pools. This is just a simple example that I can show you concrete evidence of how this works, and I have a feeling that as we cover these five, you're going to be inspired to, on your own, as you're sitting in front of your computer, to write down ideas as they come to your head. So, if you're listening to this, over the last year or so, have you researched how much something costs online? Well, if you're like 99.9% of the world, you probably have. So, when you are on a website and you can't find anything about cost and price, what is the emotion you experience? Well, my guess is frustration. You feel frustrated. So the question is, why do you feel frustrated? Well, you feel frustrated because you feel it's your right to know, and you're the customer. I'm the customer. Of course it's my right to know. But not only that, you're frustrated because you know in this moment that the company, they know the answer to the question. And because you know they know the answer to the question and they're not giving it to you, now you feel like they are hiding something from you. And the moment you feel like someone is hiding something from you, well, trust is gone. And every single one of us that is listening to this right now, we are in the business of trust, no matter how you break it out. This is how it works for all of us. We get frustrated. And in this moment of frustration, do you say to yourself, well, that's okay, I'll keep digging on this website? And of course, the answer is no. You don't keep digging on that website. That almost insults your internet intelligence. Do you say to yourself, well, that's okay, they're a value-based business, I will call them instead? Well, if you're like most of the world, you stopped calling them a while back. In fact, today, instead of calling them, instead of digging further on that website, you continue to search. And you search until somebody gives you the answer. And whoever gives you that answer, well, they're probably going to get your business. If not, they're going to at least get your phone call. That is the essence of the behavior that we have all learned online. You get frustrated, I get frustrated. So the question I would have for you is, right now, on your business's website, how much do you talk about cost and price? Well, if you're like many people, you're saying, well, I don't, Marcus, because, and then you're going to make up reasons. Now, here's the reasons why people say they don't do it. Number one, they say, well, I don't want my competitors seeing my pricing, even though most of the time your competitors already know your pricing just like you know theirs. Or you might say, well, you see, I don't want to scare people away. But what we just established a second ago with your behavior in mind is what really scares us away is when we don't talk about cost and price. And so this puts us in a dilemma. And by the way, the answer to how much does your stuff cost, if I came to you and asked, it's two words. And it's the same as it is for me when it comes to buying a fiberglass swimming pool or hiring a content marketing company. The answer is two words. It depends. And we embrace this philosophy of they ask you answer river pools. The first article that we wrote was, how much does the fiberglass pool cost? And we said, you know what, it's kind of like buying a car. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of accessories. But the answer to your question is, it depends. But we explained that over the course of 800 or 900 words, and we explained it really, really well. Now, what happened because we explained this? Well, 6 years ago, no pool company in the world had addressed this question, how much does a fiberglass pool cost on their website? Why have they not done it? Well, same reason why many of you haven't done it either, because you're afraid of the competition, you're afraid to scare people away. Well, because we wrote this article, within 48 hours, if you go online and you search today, and the cool thing about being on a webinar is you can actually search this right now as we're talking. You type in average cost fiberglass pools, how much does a fiberglass pool cost, what does a fiberglass pool cost, how much does it cost to install a pool. This is the first article that you see. Now this is just traffic. Traffic is just the beginning. Well, here's where the rubber meets the road, and what I'm getting ready to show you here is advanced analytics. Now, I know Vertical Measures is a HubSpot partner. I'm a HubSpot partner. HubSpot is not the only one that does advanced analytics, but you're looking at HubSpot stats right now. So here is a list of the #1 keywords that drove the most traffic to our site over the course of 3 years. Each one in red is indicating a phrase that somebody searched where they landed on that "how much does a fiberglass pool cost" article. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Look at this first arrow. 13,000 people typed in the phrase fiberglass pool prices into Google. Of those 13,000, 30 of them filled out a form and said, "I want to get a quote." All right, they filled out a "I want to get a quote" form. So each one of these appointments that you see on the right side of the page is coming from someone that originally landed on that article of the website first. So my question for you is this: if that article is not written, how many of these roughly 200 plus sales appointments occur? And the answer, of course, is probably 0 to less than 5%. And why is that? Well, it doesn't occur because they never find us. They never find us, the conversation never starts. And because the conversation never starts, we never have a chance to educate them and earn their trust. But they did find us, and we do know which ones came to the site because of that article. We do know which one of those visitors turned into a lead. We do know which one of those leads turned into an appointment. We do know which one of those appointments turned into a sale. We know the value of each one of those sales, and therefore we know the value of this one single article was $2.5 million. This one single article saved my business. It saved my home. It saved the jobs of my employees, and I exaggerate not when I say that. Now, remember, I'm not asking you to put your prices on your website. If you want to, that's great, but I can tell you this. For every single client that we have at the sales line, the #1 traffic, lead, and sales generating content has to do with money. And to give you a further example of this, let's say your company offers 20 different services or products. We'll call them major services or products. Well, if that's the case, you should probably have 20 different articles or videos or both on your site that is addressing these questions individually. Remember, these aren't fluff answers. Really explain what will drive the cost up, what will drive the cost down. One last point about this. With our clients, we have found that the more companies do this, the more specific they get over time, not less in terms of what they're willing to put on that page. And the reason for that is because they find they get dramatically better leads and have much better sales appointments because they have been more honest on the front end. I would challenge you to consider talking about cost and price. Let's look at another example. #2 of the big 5. That's problems. Let's say hypothetically, back in the day when I was a pool guy, you met with me. You say, "Hey, Marcus, I want to get a quote for a pool." We meet, and you like my fiberglass pools, but to keep me honest, you meet with a concrete pool guy. Well, as soon as you meet with a guy that does concrete pools, what is he going to say about fiberglass pools? He's going to tell you everything that's wrong with them. He's going to say, "You don't want that. It's going to have nothing but problems. You don't want a fiberglass pool." Well, how many times over the years do you think I was asked, "So Marcus, be honest, what are the potential problems with a fiberglass pool?" Well, of course, almost every single time. And 5-6 years ago, guess how many pool guys had addressed that question on their website? Of course, once again, the answer is nobody had done it. So we addressed it. Now, where does the rubber meet the road? So here's a list of the keywords that drove the most sales appointments, and the sales appointments are on the right side, the right column there, for the River Pools website over the course of 2 years. The #1 appointment driving phrase was River Pools and Spas with 56 sales appointments. I don't really count that because that person, they were looking for us. But everybody else that you see here, they didn't know who they wanted to engage. They just knew that they had a question. And so the #1 phrase that generated the most sales appointments over the course of 2 years was fiberglass pool problems. And I would ask you, how is it possible that writing about the problems with your stuff could in this case generate $500,000 in sales? And the answer is trust. Nobody is willing to do this. They don't want to address the elephant in the room. I'm challenging you to control the conversation. Has anybody ever asked you, what are the potential issues with? What are the potential problems of? If I choose that route, what could be the drawbacks? If they've asked you that question, I would challenge you to address it on your website. Next one, comparisons versus compare. Let's say hypothetically, using the pool example again, that we met, you think you want a fiberglass pool, but you also meet with a concrete pool builder, and you want maybe a concrete pool. You don't know which one's best. Well, the natural thing that you're going to do next is you're going to go online and you're going to search fiberglass versus concrete pools, or which is better, a concrete pool or a fiberglass pool. And how many times over the years do you think I've been asked this question? Marcus, be honest, why should I get a fiberglass pool? Well, I got that question all the time. And of course, no pool guys had addressed that on their website because once again, they were afraid to address the elephant in the room. And by the way, I knew that if I was going to address this, I couldn't be biased. And so, what does an article like this sound like? Well, it sounds something like this. Let's say I was writing an article on fiberglass versus concrete pools. It would go something like this. You know, one of the questions that people ask us all the time when they're considering a pool is, should I go concrete or should I go fiberglass? It's a really, really good question. It's an important question too. The truth is, here at River Pools, we only sell fiberglass pools, but that doesn't mean that fiberglass is the best choice for you. In fact, concrete might be the better option. What this article is going to do, it's going to explain to you the pros and the cons of each type of pool. That way, by the end, you'll hopefully be able to decide which is the best choice for you. So that format I just gave you for that first paragraph, that's the same format that we use with clients all over the world. B2B, B2C, service, product, doesn't matter. It's the same format with our paragraphs, especially when we're writing something that somebody thinks is going to be biased. So what was the result of this article? Well, if you go online today and you compare any type of in-ground swimming pool, and once again, you have the opportunity to do this because we're on a webinar, you can see that you're going to learn from us. And this article has made us hundreds of thousands in additional revenue. So we've addressed 3 of the big 5 so far. We've got cost questions, we've got problems-based questions, and we've got comparison-based questions. I would challenge you to brainstorm each one of these 3. Now the last one, or the last 2, I'm going to combine together. And the cool thing is this is the most controversial one. I mean, this one here is going to make a few of you slap your forehead and say, no stinking way, he just did that. So have you ever been asked before, hey, if we like you, we really, really do, but if I don't do business with you, if we don't choose your company, is there anybody else that you might recommend? I know you hate that question, don't you? And most people, when they get that question, they say something like, oh, no, there's nobody quite like us. We're so unique and we're so special. And of course, the whole time, the person that asked the question is thinking, come on now, just be honest with me. Well, one night, I was in Richmond, Virginia, and this was about 4 years ago, and I was on a sales appointment. I'd been there for about 2-3 hours, and the couple at the end say, we like you, Marcus. We think we're probably going to get the pool from you, but is there anybody else that you would recommend if you were us? And I thought to myself, daggone it, here goes. And so as I was driving home that night, I thought to myself, well, they asked the question, and that means they ask, you answer. And so at midnight one night, I wrote this article right here. Who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia? Reviews/ratings. And I came up with a list of 5 of the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia. Now, I'd ask you, am I on that list of 5? Some of you are saying yes in your head. Some of you are saying no. Well, the answer is no. The reason why it's no is because if I put myself on a best of list, I lose credibility. And now I don't come across as unbiased. I come across as biased, self-serving. I want to be truly educational. Besides, if they're reading this article, where are they? Of course, they're on my website. But even better, let's be hypothetical for a second. Let's say that you just moved to Richmond, Virginia, and you're thinking about getting a pool. So a natural search that you might do online is Best Pool Builders, Richmond, Virginia. As soon as you do that, you stumble across this article because it's the first one that you're going to see in organic search results. Once you do that, you're going to read these first 2 paragraphs. Now, I'm going to read these first 2 paragraphs with you, and I want you to tell me, like, what is your impression as you read this? Remember, you just went online, you typed in Best Pool Builders, Richmond, Virginia, you don't know who you want to engage, and you're reading an educational article. Each year, we at River Pools and Spas meet with well over 100 households in the Central Virginia, Richmond area with respect to their in-ground swimming pool installation. And because so many folks know our thoughts and feelings from this website on all things pool construction, they often ask us who are some of the other builders and competitors we have in the area. Never wants to shy away from being blatantly honest with respect to the competition. Here's a list of some of the companies that have a solid in-ground pool building history in the Richmond area. So what's your impression of this company right now? Well, if you're like pretty much everybody that's I've ever talked to, your impression is they're honest and you sense that they're an expert. But we didn't say we're an expert. Notwithstanding, you sense that we are. And of course, the reason why you sense this is because not only do hundreds of households trust us to invite them to their home each year, but we're willing to address this subject. So what is the result of this article? Well, of course, if you go online and you type in best pool builders, Richmond, Virginia, this is the first one you're going to see. But that's not where it gets really cool. All right? By the way, if you're a location-based business and you're reading this right now or listening to this right now, I hope you're like furiously scribbling notes because you're like, you should be like, oh my goodness, I got to do this tonight. And you really, really should, because I'm telling you, this is going to have a tremendous impact on your company. But let's say hypothetically you went online and you search for reviews play more pools, which is our biggest competitor in Richmond, Virginia. Well, once you get past the sponsored search, the first one that you see is again us. And that's why today, whenever anybody is researching our competitors, generally they find themselves on our website. Once again, we control the conversation. You know, I had a lady come to me a couple years ago. She said, Marcus, the most interesting thing happened. I was this close to signing a contract with Playmore Pools. And before I signed that contract, I decided to go online and research the company. And as I was researching the company, I stumbled across this article that you guys had written. I said, my goodness, these guys are so honest. I should probably call them too. And of course, you know what happened, don't you? Because otherwise, I wouldn't be sharing this story. That article made us $150,000 in sales that year. Now, some of you are thinking to yourself, well, Marcus, aren't you afraid you've now introduced them to the competition? No, because if somebody wants to know who your competitors are, roughly how long will it take them to figure it out? The answer is like 15 seconds if they're slow. Look, this much I can tell you for certainty, that consumer ignorance is no longer a viable sales and marketing strategy. I'll repeat, consumer ignorance is no longer a viable sales and marketing strategy. If you're hoping that they will learn about the other option, your competitor, the other thing, the other choice, and you think that's a competitive advantage, you're already way behind. Embrace the idea that they already know, and if you do that, it'll dramatically change your ability to garner more traffic, trust, ultimately leads in sales. Really quick, one other point about that. You might say, where did you get the information from these companies? If you look at it, I didn't inject my opinion about these companies. The only thing I did is I literally stated facts that they themselves had stated on their websites. Right? It was essentially saying this is what they are. It was inarguable. You say, what's the result? In other words, what have the competitors said to you when they realize you talked about them? The only thing that's ever happened is people have thanked us for including them in these best of lists. Makes them scratch their head. They don't understand it, but now you all do. Because we did this, in February 2009, that's when we started They Ask You Answer. That's when we began to focus on the Big Five. And if you look at the first year, we barely got by. We made it, but we barely got by, but enough to save the business. We went into the off season, and then by the second year, the green is organic search traffic, it really started to grow. Third year, fourth year, fifth, and sixth, you see where it ended up. Last month, my friends, we at River Pools received 500,000 visitors to the website. Today, River Pools is the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. And it all happened because we said, we're going to obsess over the questions people are asking. We're going to answer them one by one through text and video. We're going to be the Wikipedia of fiberglass pools. And we're especially going to focus on these 5 subjects that move the needle more than anything else. You may be thinking, well, that's a pool company. I don't know how it applies to me. If you are, I feel awful, but I still want to show you some examples in case we have some major doubters on the webinar. So let's look at a couple of other companies. So this company is called Segway Technologies. What Segway Technologies does is they do web, data, and mobile applications in the B2B space and in the business to government space. And their deals, usually are pretty expensive, usually triple digits. And so they came and they said, look, we are only getting 5% of our leads from the internet. We're not getting a lot of traffic. What do? Well, we started producing content. Now, I'm going to show you, again, some deep intelligence. This is their most viewed pages of their website this year. Okay, so if you look at it, look at the first one, waterfall versus agile, which is the right development methodology for your project. Second one, .NET versus Java, how to make your pick. So you notice these are comparison-based ones. All right, fourth one, Microsoft SQL Server versus Oracle, the same but different. And then at the bottom, you've got advantages and drawbacks, which is problems, of using stored procedures for processing data. Now, you say, geez, that's really nerdy and niche. I agree, but you see how it's working. It's always the subjects, when you follow the methodology of the Big Five. Now, it doesn't mean you don't answer other subjects, but the Big Five outperforms the rest in most cases. And if there was a Big Six, the number 6 one would be how-to articles, by the way. That's why I would say it would be number 6. Well, I just try to keep it at 5 to keep it simple and the most influential ones. Because we did this, here's the results. Again, no reason to talk theory. Let's talk biscuits. Biscuits and gravy. So what's happened with this company? Well, you see where their traffic was in January 2013. You see where it ended up by October of 2014, after 18 months. Amazing traffic growth. Today, they're actually getting over 100,000 visitors a month. But after the first 18 months, their VP said, since starting this just over 18 months ago, we can account for $1 million in additional revenue because of our content marketing efforts. But I want to stress to you, they were focused on the subjects that people are asking that are serious buyers. That's the essence of the Big Five. Let's look at another one. This is Alaska Sleep Company. It's a little sleep company in good old Alaska. And they help people that have sleeping disorders. And so we focused, again, on the Big Five. So here's some of the articles that we did. This is their top, 6 or 7, 8 most read pages of their website so far this year, highest performing pages. Check it out. So number 2, what is the difference between BiPAP and CPAP? All right, those are the masks that you put on. All right. Number 3, CPAP machines and camping, a review of the best equipment. Number 4, how much does a sleep study cost? Go ahead, Google that. How much does a sleep study cost? All right. Another one, 9 alternative treatments to CPAP therapy, which is kind of like a versus post. And then you've got the advantages and disadvantages of APAP therapy. You see, to us, to the common person, this might not be interesting, but you notice a commonality with the highest performing pages of these websites. Their homepage is not even close to being the highest performing page of their website. I'm going to show you, oh yeah, by the way, the traffic. Before they started, they ask you answer and focusing on the Big Five. This is nuts. So they literally started in June of 2014. That's when they contacted us and they said, we're not really growing the web traffic. We are producing content, but it's not working. We looked at it. I mean, it was obvious. They just weren't thinking like the consumer, and they certainly weren't focused on the Big Five. And now you can see the results. Kind of crazy. Last one. This is a company called Yale Appliance. Yale Appliance is a retailer of kitchen appliances out of Boston. This is a HubSpot customer. They are great. They came to me about 4 or 5 years ago, and their CEO, whose name is Steve Scheinkoff, he says to me, Marcus, we're producing this content. We've been doing HubSpot and inbound marketing, but the problem is we aren't growing our traffic, and we're not getting more leads from the site like we should be. We looked at the subjects that they were addressing, and they weren't truly addressing it the way that the consumer would be searching it, thinking it, feeling it, asking it. And so we went back, we changed all the old stuff, and we implemented the new. So here's an example of their highest performing pages this year. Once again, you'll see a commonality in patterns. Look at it. The best induction cooktops of 2012. Slide-in versus freestanding ranges. Best 30-inch professional gas ranges, reviews, ratings. Best stainless steel kitchen appliance packages. I mean, these are the articles. Now they're comparing brands. Viking versus Sub-Zero refrigerators, reviews/ratings. It's just really smart because this is the way, like if you're a consumer and you're debating between a Viking and a Sub-Zero fridge, obviously that's a question you're going to search online, and they have done amazing things. They are so far surpassing even these big manufacturers. So here's their traffic. you can see when they changed their content marketing strategy, it was June of 2012. And they had essentially just been kind of just hovering in that 40,000 visitors a month. Well, now they're getting over 300,000 visitors a month. And in fact, last month they got 400,000 visitors to their website. It's amazing. But it happened all because of a commitment to addressing the subjects as consistently, as honestly, as transparently as possible that nobody else in their industry, especially these big Goliath manufacturers, were willing to address. So that's my challenge to you. My challenge for you is to focus on they ask you answer, but not just that. What are the subjects that you know the customers are asking but you haven't addressed? Is it possible that you address them? I'm not saying that you have to specifically answer everything, but I am saying that you have to be willing to address everything. If you do this, you will get more traffic. You will earn more trust. Eventually, you will get more leads. And ultimately, that will equal more sales. And now, Quinn, I believe I'm ready for questions, if there are any.
There are, and I know you touched on this a little bit, but we have a question from Bryant. And he asked, what about industries that are hyper-saturated with content, like online marketing or marketing agencies or the like? What do you think about that?
So this isn't just an SEO play. This is if they come to your site because of a referral, if they come to your site because of a social media visit, when they show up, are they being fed? Do they feel like, my goodness, this company gives me everything I want to know? Because that's half the battle as well. So it's not just about saturation. But let me give you a real example. Just the other day, somebody sends me an email and says, Marcus, I have used all the strategy you've taught. So far, I'm 40% up this year, and I just can't believe it. We're crushing it. Our competitors are telling us they're having the worst year of their life, and it's just been amazing for us. We've already sold more by the end of May than we did all of last year, and guess what they sell for a living? They sell in-ground swimming pools. And so it made me chuckle, because people say all the time, well, what if I was second, Marcus? What if I came into the pool industry now? It would be a waste of time. Heck no! Because first of all, I've never seen anybody that's addressed all the questions and done it well. And a lot of these companies that are doing it, it's not very good content. It's certainly not transparent, certainly not honest, it's certainly not unbiased. And besides that, just from the user experience of coming to your site, it's more than worth it. And look, we haven't even addressed the ability, if you produce this content, for your sales team to use it. I mean, maybe we should have another webinar one of these days, and if y'all want it, just tell Vertical Measures, hey, let's do one just on the sales side of using content to sell. And if enough people ask, I'd love to come back and do that, because there's a whole side to this that I haven't even talked about in terms of what it will do to closing rates, to sales cycles, if you really become the Wikipedia of your space. So don't allow yourself to be deterred by other people in other industries. I know I see opportunities all the time. I'm in the digital marketing space, so is Vertical Measures. Is it tougher to show up in search because of the content saturation? Yes. Does that mean you shouldn't play? Heck no, you absolutely should. And if you do, you're going to get the benefits.
Great. We've got a question. This one's interesting, and I know it's an objection we hear a lot when it comes to content marketing. So this is from Christina. She asks, how do you market a boring industry like long-distance moving, for example?
Boring? So are you telling me that when I put thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff in a truck that could be a family like heirloom, that I'm not concerned how that stuff is going to look when it arrives on the other side of the country? Let me tell you what's sexy. Sexy is when somebody's getting ready to spend money. So to you, because you sell the thing, you say, that's not a very sexy industry. People, do you realize how many times somebody has said to me, Mark, is this crazy that this worked in an industry like pools? I mean, that's not very sexy. I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean that's not sexy? I mean, I'm not talking about bikinis. I'm talking about this is legitimately awesome. Because when somebody is looking to put a pool in their backyard, they don't want to make a mistake. When somebody's looking to move their stuff across the country, they don't want to make a mistake. And besides, have you ever seen anybody like, and you may have done this yourself, you'll search an extra 20 minutes online just to save $5 on a widget. $5 on a widget. And so the point is, don't ever, ever tell yourself that your industry isn't sexy, because unless it doesn't involve money and decision making, well, then there's no way you can say that. I've never seen that to be the case.
Great. We've got a question from Jordan more on the B2B space. He says, how does, or it might be a she, sorry, how does content marketing strategy differ for B2B companies? Can you speak to that at all, Marcus?
So I think that question is inherently flawed. Because, we just looked at Segway Technologies a minute ago, okay? Segway Technologies did the exact same thing that Yale Appliance did. The sales line is a B2B company, and River Pools was a B2C company. We're doing the exact same thing. We're answering our customers' questions. Now, in the B2B space, you have businesses that are asking you questions, businesses that are searching. And lots of times, by the way, B2B companies are actually B2C companies. Like a manufacturer is a B2C company even though they sell to vendors. Ford Motor Companies, for example, is a B2C company even though they don't sell directly to the consumer. And lots of companies are becoming or realizing they're actually B2C even though they like to say we're B2B. There isn't a difference. There isn't a difference. And the companies, I'm telling you, the companies that sit there and think, but you see, Marcus, we're B2B, they have completely missed the point. They've missed the boat. And they are over, like, I don't know who was the first person that came out and like stated to the world, let's have this thing called B2B. This way, we feel like we can preclude ourselves from every solid recommendation of sales and marketing strategy heretofore. It doesn't make any sense, y'all. And Jordan, I'm not picking on you. I mean, a lot of people say that. It's just the point is that, like I said, 70% of our clients are B2B. We follow this exact same strategy using the big five. Doesn't change.
Great. I think my favorite quote you said so far is, sexy is when someone's getting ready to spend their money. So that's a great one. We've got
that's right. And it could be $5, it could be $500, it could be $5 million.
Yeah. From Gabriel, he says, I have HubSpot. I've adopted your strategy, Marcus, and I've seen good incremental visits, increase in visits and leads, but no conversions. I can't afford sales line services or working with an agency, so what would you recommend I do next?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that are going on there. So number one, does the messaging within the content dictate a good lead? So, for example, if you say, Marcus, I talk about costs, but all the time people tell me they don't have enough money and I'm too expensive at the end when we get to the time of quoting. Well, apparently you didn't talk about costs very well. So it's like I used to, let me give an example. For a long time, I used to be at the end of a sales appointment and somebody would say to me when I was a pool guy, somebody say to me, oh, geez, Marcus, this is just more than we thought it was going to be. And I would get so mad, Gwen. I'd be like, what a ding-dong. I can't believe they don't know that this costs at least $30,000. Like, how did they not know that? And then I realized the ding-dong was me. I was the dummy because I hadn't bothered teaching them well enough for them to say, oh, okay, this is what we need to be prepared for. So because we became so good with content, we stopped having so many bad conversations and led to good conversations. And so there's a two-part answer. Number one, I think your messaging needs to be better and cleaner, more targeted to your ideal client, your ideal persona. Number two, it sounds to me like you might have some flaws in your sales process, which is a whole other conversation. But if you're not closing a lot of deals, that's a bad sign. It's a bad sign, and we might have a sales issue there.
Well, this is a question we were kind of talking about even before we jumped on the call with everyone about how you do content marketing workshops whenever you start an engagement with a client. So this question's from Mike. He says, how do you persuade companies to get actively engaged in producing content?
Huge.
Do you show case studies like you presented here, actual results, or do you use a different approach to get doubters to take action on a consistent basis? And I know this is a huge, huge thing that many people are dealing with right now. So what do you think? Marcus, are you there? Oh, did we lose him? We might have. Marcus? Well, we'll give him a second to jump back on. So Marcus, if you can hear me, we can't hear you. But Mike, I'll speak on this until we can get Marcus back on. How do you persuade companies to get actively engaged in producing content? I think that really has to start from the top down. You need to get leadership to buy into the idea of content marketing. And that's going to be hard because, you know, a lot of people are still in a traditional mindset where they think in older
the exact
ways.
Same page.
Are you back? Okay. I mean, I could take it, but I think you know more than I do.
We missed it all, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. GoToMeeting gave one of those. Your audio is not working right. So
yeah.
the internet let us down.
Marcus. I had started just talking about leadership and getting buy-in from the top, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and this is why I love vertical measures. Arnie has been preaching this gospel, and I think not to be too braggadocious about both of us, but for like 4 years we've both been saying, look, if you're not kicking off a campaign for inbound and content marketing with your entire team, especially your sales team being there, then you're probably not going to have a whole lot of success. But in order to get their buy-in, you need to have some type of catalyst type of event where they understand the what, the how, and the why, as Simon Sinek would say. They understand the impact it will have on them individually, it'll have on the collective, how it'll actually make their job dramatically better, easier, how they'll stop wasting as much time answering the same questions over and over again, how they'll work with more qualified people, but it all comes back to an initial workshop and then ongoing training. I believe companies that do this well should have a workshop at least twice a year with the entire team of potential subject matter experts.
Awesome. We actually have a question from Arnie. You might have heard him pop on. But
I'm here, Marcus.
Oh, What's
up, brother?
Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. So actually, I jumped on the line when I heard that your phone went out, so I was going to try to cover for you, but you're back.
I'm back.
All right. Hey, so actually my question is, and we get asked this a lot, and I think you and I have very similar philosophies on this, but do you care at all about the social metrics with respect to the content that's being produced, you know, like likes, shares, and so on?
Yeah, good old vanity metrics, baby. They make us feel good, but they don't pay the bills. So this is what I would say. A huge portion of businesses so this is one of those where people always misquote you when you say things here. So first of all, I'll say this: you can't be a jack of all social media trades because you'll end up being a master of none if you try to be. You're much better off saying, okay, let us focus on one thing. Now, for the majority of the listeners on this call, I would say your focus should be on producing great content through text and video first. Now, if you do this, that will naturally feed social. But depending on your industry, social may not be a big deal. Okay, so to give you an example on what I'm talking about, social drives a lot of traffic with the sales line because I'm speaking to a lot of marketers. But with river pools, I've got articles that have been read 100, 200, 300,000 times and been liked or retweeted once or twice. Does that mean they weren't successful? No, it just means that for whatever reason, people don't go on Twitter and brag about how they just spent $100,000 on a swimming pool. It just doesn't happen. So my point to you is this: be careful not to get obsessed with the metrics that ultimately don't make the greatest impact. I don't want to say that social is not important to your business, because there's a chance that it is, but don't allow it to deter you from becoming the best teacher in the world. That's your focus. Don't write something because you say, will it get comments or will it not get comments? Will it get tweets? Oh my goodness, it didn't get tweets. It wasn't successful. That's baloney. What defines success when it comes to content is how much revenue did it generate. That's what defines success. The rest just makes us feel pretty and good and maybe gets us to speak at a conference, but it doesn't necessarily define success.
Amen, brother.
Amen. We do. I think we even show your one of your blog posts in our workshop about social metrics and all of that, and how it's not the one thing you want to get hung up on, even though it is important for engagement, but not necessarily for sales.
Oh gosh, engagement. Here's the engagement that matters. Emails, when they email you directly. So here's one last stat, because I know we're ready to close this mama jama out. And here's the last stat for you you'll appreciate when it comes to these vanity metrics. I once tallied up the sales line. The Sales Lion has over 20,000 real, legitimate, non-spam comments. Okay, 20,000.
Wow.
And I once went back and figured out how many of those 20,000 commenters had become a customer, and the answer is 0. Can you believe that mess? Now, some of the people became a commenter after they became a customer, but do you know how people engage with you when they want to give you money? They send you an email. They call you. They fill out a form on your website. That's how they engage with you when they want to spend money with you. Normally, it's not by comments. This is not 100%, but this is for over 90% of all businesses.
Great. I think we are running out of time, but thank you so much, Marcus. I learned a lot, and I actually have quite a few more questions on here that we can't get to, so I might shoot those over to you.
That's why we got my email. They can email me. They can email you. We will hook them up because we love the peeps.
Yep, and we know you're really good at answering questions, so we learned that today. But please join us next month, everyone. We do these every month. Next month, I think we've got another slide here. We have our own SEO strategist, Christina Hecht, and she's going to be talking about marketing automation and if it's hurting your website's SEO. Now, she just wrote this free guide all about this, about 6 ways marketing automation can hinder your success. And it's what a lot of people don't know about. So we're going to be talking about that for about 45 minutes on August 13th. So you can register on our homepage or verticalmeasures.com/webinars. So again, thank you so much, Marcus. We really appreciate it. We love your ideas, and we always love hearing you speak. So thanks for coming out today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Vertical Measures. And last thing, if I can, and this sounds braggadocious, but you guys, when I have an SEO problem, I go to you guys. You have made a big impact with some of my clients that have been Google penalized. I've written about it on the Sales Line. So thank you for doing great things. You have just really, really set a high bar there, Vertical, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks, Marcus. Yeah. And thanks, everyone, for coming out. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye.